Hey guys, so for today's vlog, I'll be talking about something really exciting. Something about music history, okay? So tune in and let's get started. I told you we'd go back in time. Today, if you're wondering why I look like this, it's because this was the vogue during the 17th century, aka the Baroque period. So today in music history, we are going to talk about the Baroque era. So this was the era between around 1600 to 1750. Yeah, a really long time ago. But curiously, their music lives on. And actually, personally, it's one of my favorite kinds of music. So I hope you stay tuned and you listen, okay? So, the Baroque period, it was marked by an outpouring of innovation, like the invention of new styles, new genres, new methods of writing.
But wait!
What does Baroque even mean? Actually, it translates to a misshapen pearl. Can you imagine if these pearls are misshapen? Ew, ew. Like in Tagalog, diba, we always say like,
Barak naman ang English mo!
and it's not a good thing. But how come people called the music of this era the Baroque music? It actually comes from an 18th century critic who said that music of the 17th century sounded really old, very dissonant, very unmelodious, aka Baroque. But thankfully, people from the 19th century started appreciating Baroque music more. That's why it became more popular. Actually, it was in the 19th century that yung mga people like sina Bach, sina Handel, their music really flourished. Because the composers at that time really loved Baroque music as much as I do. So, what else is it about the Baroque music that I love? Well, the Baroque era is marked by extravagance, decoration, and with a focus on expression. So during the Baroque era, in terms of music, people really prized music's dramatic power and music's ability to move the affections. But first, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's contextualize the era. What is it that was happening during the Baroque period? Well, there were three kinds of revolutions. The first was a scientific and a philosophic revolution.
I'm up to meet you.
So people like René Descartes, like Isaac Newton, like Galilei, sorry, they started a scientific revolution in which they prized observation. So you adhered to what you observed rather than to what authority told you. Sadly, these days, parang mga tao walang common sense, no? Like they don't see, they already see so many things and yet they believe random people. So that was so medieval. And of course, in terms of philosophy, nagkaroon tayo ng deductive approach, wherein you use logic and reason to confirm your conclusions. Hindi lang sila nun yung sabi niya kasi ganito kaya ganyan. Hindi. Sila if A, then B, and then B, then C, then A, then C. Ganun sila kaya complex. Yeah, that was the Baroque period for you. Okay, so aside from the scientific and the philosophical revolution, we also have a political revolution. So in England, there became a group called the English Levelers, and they wanted democracy. So they wanted to do away with all these kings and queens, and they wanted to establish the parliament. The concept of a limited monarchy developed. But all the way in France, instead of democracy, they advocated absolute monarchy. They strengthened the power of the state. Sadly, yun na ba yung nangyayari sa Pilipinas ngayon?
I'm up to meet you.
But anyway, in France, You hear of the splendors of Louis XIV? That was during the Baroque period. And you see the splendor. For example, yung wife niya, mas maganda pa yun sa akin. More jewels, bigger hair, more makeup, because they wanted to, paano ba? They wanted to prove a point na they had all the power. They were the ideal. So in France naman, the political revolution there was that the power of the state was further strengthened. Okay, so we have the scientific and philosophical revolution, we have the political revolution, and we also had a religious revolution. If you remember what happened during the Renaissance, nagkaroon ng tsakanes sa loob ng Catholic Church because of Martin Luther, who started the Reformation. Ayan. He wrote 95 theses against this practice in the Catholic Church called indulgences, wherein binibili mo daw ang salvation. That's no-no. That's a no-no for Martin Luther. For Martin Luther, salvation was earned through grace alone. Well, not earned, was like, salvation was given to you through grace. So yun si Martin Luther. So in response to that, the Catholic Church sought to strengthen itself with the Counter-Reformation. Dun labas yung mga Jesuits sa ating neighboring school in Arneo. And speaking of Jesuits, don't forget to watch Smaller and Smaller Circles. Okay? Right, ng religious revolution wherein yung Catholic Church sobrang sila nag-strengthen. So they rode on, actually no, they capitalized on the extravagance that was present in the Baroque era to show the extravagance of the Catholic Church, its splendors, its glory, its beauty. So yeah, that was a way for them to strengthen the church. So there were the three revolutions during that time. In terms of music naman, during the Baroque period, music was characterized by drama.
Ooh, drama.
Who doesn't like drama, diba? So, how did they dramatize music? They put motion into music. For example, nagkaroon ng contrasting rhythms. Extra slow, and then extra fast. Yun yung drama and music noon in terms of rhythm. And then nagkaroon ng drama and melodies. Singers sang even higher. Ay, na-joke lang, hindi ko kaya. Diretso na lang ako.
And they sang even lower.
And then it was full of harmonic contrasts. So, for example, unexpected harmonies. So, hindi lang sila yung gaya ng Renaissance period na parang mga intervals of a fourth and mga faubourgon, mga faburden, iba-iba na ginagawa nila ng Baroque. Gano'n sila ka-cool. And of course, drama in terms of the textures. So later on, we'll see how this applies to the genre that we'll be talking about today. Hindi ko pa pala nire-reveal. Okay lang. Surprise lang siya. Okay. So, drama also requires on your audience.
Siyempre, pag may drama, diba? People love chika.
So at that time, music was dramatic and music necessitated an audience. Kumbaga, if during the Renaissance in the medieval, yung music parang kanya-kanya lang, barka-barkada, tapos singing, ganyan. During the Baroque period, dun nagka-rise ng concept ng public. People watched musicians. People paid to watch musicians perform. So, in that sense, performers became professionals. Hindi lang sila laymen, hindi lang sila mga musikero sa tabi-tabi. No, they were professionals. They were paid. And essentially, at that time, when you were a musician, you were kind of, parang okay ka na sa life. Ganun. Okay. So first, music in the Baroque period characterized by drama. And next, it was also characterized by the affections. So affections include like emotions like sadness, joy, anger, love, fear, excitement, and wonder. So yun. Basically, affections were relatively stable states of the soul that are set in motion by external stimuli. So, actually, nakikita natin yan hanggang ngayon eh. For example, marinig mo yung kanta ni Sam Smith today. Ano ba yun? Oh my God, I'm so not updated with my pop music. Anyway, for example, pag kumanta si Sam Smith, automatically parang, shit, ang sakit-sakit. Kahit na hindi ka naman heartbroken at the moment. That illustrates music's power to move the affections. And at that time, during the Baroque period, that for them was the main purpose of music, to really move the affections, to make you feel sad, happy, angry, excited, in awe, etc. So, that's what we will see in this genre that we'll be talking about today. Hindi ko pa na-reveal. Sige, mamaya ko na-reveal yun. Okay, anyway, so also music during the Baroque period, a practice was established called secondo pratica, or the second practice. So in contrast to prima pratica, which was established by our best friend in counterpoint Palestrina, wherein parang, for example, yung counterpoint may strict rules governing it, especially regarding dissonances, mga clashing tones. Secondo practica naman, the words were prized. So music served to heighten the effect and the rhetoric power of words. So for example, in prima practica siguro, mas concerned sila sa kagandahan ng music. But in the secondo pratica, they wanted the words to be highlighted. So, for example, if I were singing about someone cruel or someone really mean, I wouldn't sing it, hi, you're cruel, you're mean. I wouldn't sing it that way. I'd sing it, you're cruel, you're mean. Parang ganon. But at that time, parang some of the composers broke the rules of the prima pratica. And in defense, they established this secondo pratica. Which, yun nga, the sole purpose was to heighten the effect of words. So music as a servant to the words. And of course, a key aspect in music during the Baroque era was the performers. So for the performer, there was a new standard of virtuosity, of color, of projection. The Baroque era was very performer-centric. How? Music was centered on the performer. So for example, if I were a performer and feel ko parang maganda maglagay ng ornaments dito or ng improvisation dito kahit na hindi siya nakasulat, gagawin mo siya. For example, the line goes ra 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 ra. Ako, gusto ko mag-show off. Ra 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 ra. Gaganunin ko siya, 'di ba? So, there you have it, an introduction into music during the Baroque period. Pero, today's topic will be zooming into a Baroque invention that has carried over until now. And bilang me, as a voice major, this genre is somehow what defines the work that I do. And that genre is opera. And now, we go into opera. So, saan ba nanggaling yung opera? Where did it come from? Until now, we hear of the operas of Mozart, of Saint-Saëns, Samson and Delilah, of Verdi. But, it was a Baroque invention. Kiyan kakul yung Baroque period. And opera, somehow for me, I'm not biased because I'm a voice major, but for me, opera is it's not a person. Opera is the main example, the highlight of the Baroque period. It exemplified everything that the Baroque period kind of stood for. Extravagance, decoration, focus on expression. So, how did opera come to be? Wait lang. Before that, ano muna yung opera? So, opera is a union of poetry, of drama, music, and stagecraft. Of course, brought to life by a performance. Ayan. It consists of a libretto, translates to a little book. So it's a play in either rhyme or unrhymed verse. So basically basta verse. Yeah. And it was the leading genre in the 17th and 18th century. And until now, parang we still see some overflows of opera, like musical theater, musical plays. Until now, operas are still being produced. Relevant pa rin kaming mga voice majors. Yun. Anyway, okay. So, saan ba nanggaling yung opera? So, some of the forerunners of opera. First, during the Renaissance, we had the pastoral drama. So, pastoral dramas are plays in verse with music and songs interspersed. So, basically, sa pastoral drama, song was the natural mode of discourse. So right now I'm talking, but I'm also singing, but I'm talking because I'm singing. Parang ganon. Anyway, so pastoral dramas are about idyllic love in rural settings. Of course, with mythological figures. So parang strolling around in the field, washing my hands in the lake, and then meeting a cute boy over there, and then biglang may nymphs, and biglang may mga kung ano-anong mga supernatural things there na sa Greek mythology, parang ganon. Basically, they romanticize the simple life of people in the rural areas. Medyo elitista, no? But yeah, at that time, well, music was, especially opera, was born in the higher circles of society. So yun, we have the pastoral drama. And then we also have the madrigals. So in the Renaissance era, madrigals were in the vogue. It actually catapulted Italy as the musical hub until the Baroque period. So madrigals are characterized by word painting, wherein music serves to heighten the expressivity and the emotionality of the text. So, miniature dramas using voices were used to suggest the dialogue. Kasi in madrigals, the norm was the 5 voices. Sometimes all 5 together, minsan 2 together, tas 3 together, nasusugutan. So that kind of formed the basis for using a song to convey a story. So, nagkaroon tayo ng madrigal comedies, or what we call madrigal cycles, and where madrigals were grouped into a series to show a succession of scenes. An example of this is Lamfi Parnaso. Ayan. Lamfi Parnaso, or The Slopes of Parnassus by Orazio Vecchi. So it's a madrigal cycle. So different madrigals grouped into one, to form a story. So another Renaissance antecedent. But also, I think this is the most direct opera antecedent in the Renaissance. It's what's called the intermedio. So, what is it? Basically, it's a musical interlude. For example, sa isang play, yung Act 1 was set in the 1600s, and then Act 2 is set in 1610. So how will you connect the 10 years? Paano mo siya i-condense? At that time, walang kortina. Ganun yon. Kaya nagkaroon ng intermedyo kasi walang kortina. Wala silang ganito. So they had to have this sort of musical interlude para ma-connect yung dalawang acts na yun. So, that was intermedio. Basically, it was an elaborate production combining dialogue, chorus, solo, instrumental music, dance, costumes, scenery, stage effects. So, minsan, mas magastos pa ngayon yung intermedio kaysa dun sa actual play. At bakit? Dahil lang wala silang mabiling kortina. But we thank God for that, because I think that's the most direct source of opera. So an example of this would be La Pellegrina, the Pilgrim Woman. So it involves several artists who later would become one of the first figures in the creation of opera. So apart from forms of music during the Renaissance. So the three forms we discussed were the pastoral drama, the madrigals, madrigal cycles, and the intermedio. Oh my god! My doggy! Apart from the Renaissance antecedents, Greek tragedies also served as a model for Baroque opera. So it was born from an interest in reviving the ancient Greek culture, which was what we saw during the Renaissance. The carryover lang siya, bale, sa Baroque period. So the people wanted to generate the ethical effects of ancient music in Greece. Because back then in Greece, writers wrote that music had the power to shape the ethos of a person. And at that time, they used tragedies, staged plays. Anyway, at that time, they used Greek plays to affect the ethos of the people. So, people, hindi nila sure kung at that time may music na, but some people believe that during the ancient Greek era, those Greek tragedies were sung all throughout. So doon nanggaling yung concept ng opera na lahat, even the dialogue, was sung. So, people like Girolamo May concluded that Greek music consisted of a single melody sung by a soloist or a chorus with or without accompaniment. So, si Girolamo May, parang he proposed this to this guy called Count Bardi and si Vincenzo Galilei, which was the father of Galileo Galilei, by the way, and they formed this group called the Florentine Camerata, which was like an academy where the rich people discussed art, literature, music, history, etc. So, born from the idea of an interest for ancient Greek tragedy, they sponsored a lot of works that would later on become the predecessors of the earliest opera. So, based on Girolamo May's proposition na, yun nga, parang Greek tragedy only had one melodic line. So, dun lumabas yung vocal style that we call monody. So, basically, all styles of accompanied solo singing that was practiced in the 16th and 17th century. Iba yan sa monophony. Yung monophony kasi, ano siya, as in like, boses lang, single line. So, parang, that's a monophony. But if I were to sing that with a piano accompaniment or a continua or whatever, that would be a monody kasi may single melodic line. So, this was not new at all, yung monody na to. But of course, interest in Greek music led to a blossoming of different forms of vocal music. And some of these forms were actually proposed by this guy called Giulio Caccini. So later on, you'll hear more about this guy. Yan. He differentiated between two settings of poetry. So the first was a setting of strophic poetry. Yung poetry na paulit-ulit yung mga stanza, ganun. So those songs he called an arias. Okay? And then, yung mga settings naman ng poetry na through composed, meaning for example, you have several verses into the poetry, pero yung music mo for each verse, iba siya, hindi siya umuulit. So, those kind of songs, he called the solo madrigals to distinguish from the polyphonic madrigal that was, yun nga, one of the predecessors of opera as we know it today. So, an example of this would be Caccini's Vedrò il mio sol.